Okay, hi and welcome to this webinar. Thank you guys for taking the time to join this. The topic of today is the cloning and extending Infor M3 list programs using custom lists. The presenters will be Joakim Sundqvist and myself, Chris Sundstrom. We've been working with Infor products since the late 90s, over 20 years, and we've been with ComActivity for 15 years. The topic of today is, as we said, extending Infor M3 programs. And why do we think this is important? We feel that in many ways, Infor has gone full circuit in terms of bringing the power back to the business consultant. A long time ago, when we had the RPG, the business consultant had a ability to fix up things, where things weren't exactly proper in the standard software. We could do things, and we didn't have to rely on modifications and VI and things like that. And what we're going to show you today is how Infor has been able to bring that power back into the business consultant or the super user. So that's just what we're going to talk about. Okay, a little bit of housekeeping first. You guys have questions, you can see questions there, and you should be able to post these questions throughout the session. So it's only us who can see them, but in the end of the session, we will have a question and answer session, and we will bring them up to everybody to listen. So don't feel free to bring in as many questions as you want during this presentation. The agenda of today will be first a little introduction, a problem definition, then we look into how we solve the problem and the data that's needed for it, and then we do a demo of how we're setting it all up, and then we have the questions and answers afterwards. Introduction. We want to explore the M3 functionality to create custom lists to display additional information from related tables. So what this is what we're talking about here are the browse windows in M3, where we want to add additional fields and maybe even calculate additional field, do a calculation or something. And that is quite frustrating when we haven't been able to do that before. It's a problem-based case study. It's not an overview of how this could work. It's actually a problem that we are bringing up, and we're using it as an example. Useful concepts to be familiar with. The M3 program, the related options in the programs, use and sorting orders, and as I mentioned, the current limitations. That's what's very important. We all have the frustration of not being able to find the field that we want to display on the screen, and we just know the database relation is there, but we can't get this field onto the screen. So that is what we're going to look into, how we're solving without code. The M3 tables are good to have an understanding a little bit about, and a little bit also about the Infor homepage, general knowledge, but we'll show how we do this. It's how we bring in this all together in today's presentation. You don't need to be an expert in coding or anything like that. It's just a general super user experience. It's what we're talking about here. The problem definition of today's case is, can we display stop and hand in M3 in alternate unit of measure? So we want to run additional information on the screen and a calculated field in this case. That's the basic problem. And obviously, it's an example. We could have a completely different problem, but can be solved in a very similar way. So what we're going to do is we're going to compare a couple of solutions, alternative solutions, and pros and cons. So we're going to look into, do we need a code? Do we need to, can we use M3 links? And what I mean with M3 links here is the M3 personalization that you have in the H5 interface. Personalizations, can we use the export to Excel opportunity? Can we do related options and conditional formatting and all that? Does it work on-premise installations? Does it work in the cloud? And what is the cost? These are the things we are comparing our different solutions. So one obvious solution would be to bring in a Java mod. That requires code. It can do all the links. It can be on-prem. And cloud maybe not so easy to do a modification with display. You probably have to go down to the JavaScript option instead. A little bit cheaper, still code, and it's got all those bells and whistles there, but also requires a couple of people to get it sorted. A BI report could also, in this case, describe the information, but then you don't have the proximity to M3, if you like. It sort of sits on its own. An ad hoc report is in M3, but you don't have those links, and you can't do a natural flow to your solution. Or an SQL report, very similar, but that's not something that we necessarily can do in cloud. Now with Data Lake and Burst, we can do that as well, but it's still not going to have the link to M3, and it's quite involved. And then we have the custom list. This is the one that we prefer then, which is the one we're going to talk about today, which is the no code. You can use the M3 links. We can have on-premise, and it can work in the cloud, and it's very cheap. That is the solution. So what we're going to do to solve our problem of today is looking at to clone the M3 standard program MWSO60, detailed balanced entities. We're going to create a new version of that, and we're going to extend it with a calculated field. Okay, so this is how the standard looks like. As you can see, we have the MWSO60 there, and it's got on-hand balance in its basic unit measure. So the solution is going to look like this. We're going to use a custom list, and we're going to have a calculated value there, and bringing in a value from a different table. So we have added that, but we can also see that we can add in our related options, and it looks like an absolutely normal program, and we can get to it from the menu. So this is what we're going to do. Before we do that, we want to look into the data that we are requiring for this to kind of work. In MWSO60, MMSW2, I should say, we are looking into the alternate unit measure. That's an important link between the item. That's the alternate unit measure that we want to have running as an alternative tally. And we have then the MMS015, which is alternate unit measure. And the type there is important for the demonstration later. And the conversion form is something which is important, and the conversion factor. And as we can see, 800 of the basic unit measure becomes 1 pallet. So that's the calculation that we're going to do. And that takes us to the demonstration. So I'm going to hand over to Joakim, who's going to start with the demo.
Well, hi everyone. This leads us to the demo part of this this presentation. The demo that we're doing is pre-recorded. The actual M3 screens is pre-recorded. We've had some problems with bandwidth when we tested this, so just to make sure that we can go through it properly. I will be talking live over though. So first of all, we go to M3, and then we start the custom list program. It's called CMS 010, and we name our new custom view or clone program. Create a new record. You have to put in some descriptions and names. As with all records in M3. And now here we need to know what is the main table for the program that you're trying to clone. In this case, it's the balance ID table. And I want to be able to use all the fields in that table. So that's the setting I add next. Now we need some related tables here. So we're going to connect the item warehouse table. Create that one. I need to sequence my related tables here. And M3 works out the keys by itself. Now I add my alternate unit of measure table, add the second sequence number here. And here I need to do some work on the key field. So I want to use the alternate unit of measure rather than the price. So that's the one value I put in here. And then the other link I make is through the alternate unit of measure used in the item warehouse. Use all the fields. So now I have all my tables defined. The next step is to add some virtual fields. So these are my calculated fields that I'm defining. So I name it, first field. So here is, I add a logical variable here to be able to handle the fact that in the M3 database, the form factor doesn't actually have the operand in the table. So that's why I have to do this step. So this is the form factor, and what I do here is that I add a boolean to say if this is 1, I can then treat this as a multiplication. Okay. The second field here that I need to add is the actual calculation. So this is the value that I want to display on the screen. So I add my description. So calculate, I want to calculate the alternate unit of measure value. I need to put in a calculation sequence here. What am I trying to do? I'm doing a calculation. Okay, I start off with the stock on hand. So this is the stock on hand in the balance ID table. And then I divide with my conversion factor. Why do I do that? Because the stock on hand is in eaches and I want to present something in pallets. So we had 800 eaches equals to 1 pallet. And then I use my my form factor logic here that I set up previously. And that's it. I've added my calculation variable. Now the next step is that we have to add this new information to a view. Now in these views are uniquely created for my clone program. So I'm not changing the standard the standard views here for MWS060. So here I'm adding my stock on hand. I'm going to add my basic unit of measure. So I add my basic unit of measure, and then I'm going to add my new calculated stock on hand in alternate unit of measure here. So that's my calculated field that I'm adding. And then I also add the unit of measure which my calculated field is expressed in. So we can see that on the screen. I'll take this from the item warehouse record. And with that, I've set up my view. Now I can test my clone program here through a simulation option. And I've got some data here that I've set up previously. So my item number is 6,600. And if you look at the list, you can see I got 1,600, which equals 2 pallets. So these are my calculated values that I've added to my list. And that concludes the first part of the demo. We move on to the next part. So the next part is how can I make my new clone function available to my end user or my end user role. So what I want to do here is that I want to set up a role for a stock controller and then use my new customized program with the extra information for that particular role. So before we do that, there's a little bit more data that we need to understand and know about. Because this custom list program is a generic program, you need to know the related options that you want to use for the specific function. So now, because I'm cloning MWS060, I can open up that program and then I can check what related options, what number they have correspond. So in this case, we want our stock controller to have access to the stock transaction history, which is 15, and also the reclassification, which is option 21. Okay, so our second part of the demo, go back to CMS 010, and I bring up my clone program again. First step here, I want to add my related options. And here is where I need to write down which options I want to use. And you need to input the name of the related option here as well. So the other one I wanted here was reclassification, which is option 21. And that's it. I've added my two related options. And I can, of course, test this using the simulation option. I simulate my list, and if I pick my record, I now have open related the two options that I want. And if I want to test the stock transaction history, you can see that M3 brings along its the key values and opens up the right position itself in the right spot of the list. Now, next step, I create the bookmark for my new view or my clone program. I'll name the bookmark the same thing as my custom list. And then I save my bookmark, and as you can see, I have a lot of bookmarks here, so I want to tidy up my list a little bit. I create a new folder here, and in this folder I name stock controller, so I'm going to put the role specific bookmarks in that folder, and then it's just a matter of dragging and dropping, moving my new function into the stock controller folder. Okay, next step. Now I want to create the home page and tie this new function to the user's home page. So I create my stock controller home page here. I need a description. I just use the same, change the color, and create. And then I need to add a widget here that shows me my bookmarks. So I'll go in and pick with the bookmark widget, and I add it. It gives me a little message. So I've added my bookmark widget, and now I need to save. And now if I click on the home page widget, it opens up my custom list. I had one more thing to do here. I wanted to, so this shows that you can add the M3 links here, but we add the stock transaction history and add the reclassification as a shortcut on my screen. And now if I highlight one of my records here, I can jump into the M3 function, stock transaction history. And that concludes the demo. So, summary, what have we done? We had a specific case here. We wanted to display a calculated field, wanted to show pallets for a stock controller together with the basic unit to measure each is. How do we achieve this? We created a custom list and we used a bookmark that we could publish on the home page that's specific for the user. So sort of a tailored user experience here without any coding whatsoever. Moving on.
All right. Thank you for that. Question and answers. All right. So we have a couple of questions that come through here from the attendees. So I think we just go through them one by one here. We can all obviously also just shoot us an email if you have any questions that comes up after this. All right, so first one here is, will this not already work in the latest version with programs which have configurable views and sort orders? And the answer to that is no. It will work in some programs. Some programs you can add in more fields and do these calculations already without having to sort of go the long way around and do what we did there. It's still the same methodology and the same thing that you do. Use the calculated fields and related tables and all that. So programs like MMS 001, 002, MWS 300, MWS 490, those ones have this ability, but not all programs has that. And then we can go around it this way. Next question is, how will this work with the new interface that Infor is planning to launch soon? Well, we don't really know exactly how that new interface will look like. We just know it's coming soon. And it will run in parallel. We know that. That's been committed to, as far as we understand. So it will run in parallel. So if you've done a couple of these customizations, they will be able to run at the same time as you have the new one, obviously. And the new interface will be rolled out program by program. So it will take a while before we have, all of them done. So it's not a wasted effort to start with this. Okay. Third question, it's coming here from somebody. Is this a new screen compared to the original MWS060? I can answer that one as well. It's, as I think Joakim mentioned that in the presentation as well, it is a new screen. It's not the same one, so it's got its complete, its own properties and everything. So it is a clone of the original one. Okay, another question. Can you link the bookmark to an M3 menu, or does it have to be in the bookmarked widget? So this is related to the home page, I suppose, and where we had the different widgets, a bookmark widget, and we have our M3 menu widgets. And yes, you can link it to, you can have this custom list sitting side by side a menu point on the home page, which, if you like, launches MWS060, and the menu point below could be launching this custom widget, for example. That sounds a little bit counterproductive, but you can mix these things into the normal flow. The other question we have here is, can you create hyperlinks for the new fields? And I guess the question is, can we do what we can do with a normal program, create a hyperlink, personalizations? Yes, that is possible. So these views behaves like a normal program, basically. That's the beauty of it. Okay, here we go. How complex are you able to build the calculations in this process? Are you able, for instance, to group some data in one table and connect the result of that? Okay, that is a complex question. The answer is you can do some stuff, but it's not a report. It doesn't have the same ability as SQL. So the limitation is basically around filtering on data, filtering on group data or filtering on data or on a table which is not the main table. When you're starting this custom views, you always have a main table. So your main table in this case is mid-lock, and you can group the data on that table, and you can summarize the value of another table, which could, for example, be sublots. But there are some limitations in what you can display here, for sure. I guess the answer is, the proof is in the pudding, I would say. On this one, it's hard to answer, but some things can be done, some things cannot be done. But the good thing is that you can link things like names and description from CSV tab, for example. They can be linked into these views. So say that you wanted to describe something that is done by a user. You don't have to describe the user ID. You can describe the user name instead. Or if you want to have a product group, for example, on your view, you can bring the product group's name from CSV tab, rather from the F4 table maintenance program, rather than having to have the code on the list. So that cumbersome join to CSV tab is already built in, and it's really, really easy to use. Not sure if you have any more. Let me see. Okay, we've got a couple of more questions here. How do we launch this new screen from within H5? Okay. I don't think you can. That is if you want to launch the screen from within H5, you have to go up to your bookmark and launch it from the bookmark. It's like, that's how it sits. So the link is a bookmark. So you can't really launch it from within H5. If you were, other than simulating, you go via CMS 010 and you do the simulate view. But that's a very ugly way of doing it. So either you have the bookmark, or you just you go via your homepage. So more and more, as the homepages are getting better and better, the more and more bulk of the work will be sort of launching from homepage. That's how we see things moving in the future. So the menus that you have in H5 will become redundant, and you will have your menus on your homepage instead, and that's where you have all your sort of starting points. That's how we see it. But it's a very good question. All right. Unless you have any more questions, I like to thank you guys for attending this little quick webinar. And as we said before, just reach out on email if you have any more questions. And looking forward to see you next time. Thank you very much.